The screaming started at midnight. Mama Esther pressed her ear against the thin wall separating her hut from her own daughter's room. Through the darkness, she could hear 20-year-old Adamma sobbing, the same desperate cries that had echoed through their home for weeks now. "Another nightmare," Esther whispered to herself, her weathered hands trembling as she lit her kerosene lamp. But deep down, she knew these weren't nightmares. These were the cries of a girl carrying a terrible secret. A secret about the man their entire village of Umueze called the Anointed One. Before we start, subscribe to the Roots of African Tales for more educating stories. 6 months earlier, Pastor Gabriel Nwosu had arrived like a miracle. The rains had failed for 2 seasons. Crops were dying, and hope was as scarce as water. Then came this tall, handsome man with his silver tongue and expensive white robes, promising healing, prosperity, and direct messages from God. "My people!" Pastor Gabriel had shouted that first Sunday, his voice carrying across the makeshift church under the ancient Iroko tree. "God has sent me to lift you from poverty. But first, you must prove your faith." The villagers had gathered like moths to flame. Mama Esther remembered how her daughter Adamma had stared at the pastor with stars in her eyes. "Mama, did you see how he made the blind woman see?" Adamma had whispered excitedly after that first service. "He truly is anointed by God." What Esther hadn't told her daughter was that she'd noticed the blind woman peeking through her fingers during the entire performance. The pastor's influence grew like wildfire. Within weeks, half the village was giving him their last coins, their jewelry, even their goats and chickens. Young girls especially seemed drawn to his charisma, hanging on his every word. "Something is not right about this man," Esther told her neighbor, Mama Ngozi, as they washed clothes by the river. "A true man of God doesn't need so much gold." "Shh!" Mama Ngozi glanced around nervously. "Adamma might hear you. She's become one of his most devoted followers." It was true. Adamma had thrown herself completely into Pastor Gabriel's ministry. She attended every service, every prayer meeting, every special counseling session he offered to young women. "He says I have a special calling, Mama," Adamma would say, her eyes bright with what Esther now recognized as dangerous devotion. "He says God has chosen me for something important." The first signs of trouble came when other girls in the village started showing up pregnant. 15-year-old Nkechi, 17-year-old Kioma, 16-year-old Amara, all unwed, all claiming they didn't know how it happened. "These girls have become baghi," the village elders declared angrily. "Rebellious, sleeping with boys instead of focusing on God's work." "Shameless," the women gossiped. "In my day, girls knew how to behave properly." But Esther noticed something the others missed. All these girls were part of Pastor Gabriel's inner circle. All of them attended his private counseling sessions. All of them looked terrified whenever his name was mentioned. "Mama," Adamma said one evening, her voice barely a whisper. What if something terrible happened to those girls? What if they didn't choose this?" Esther's heart clenched. "What do you mean, my daughter?" "Nothing," Adamma said quickly. I'm just worried about them." The breaking point came 3 months later. Adamma had been sick for weeks, vomiting every morning, sleeping all day, crying at night. When Esther finally forced her to see the village midwife, the old woman's diagnosis hit like lightning. "Your daughter is with child," the midwife announced matter-of-factly. "About 3 months along." The world tilted. Esther stared at her daughter, who was sobbing uncontrollably. "Who?" Esther whispered. "Who is the father?" Adamma's sobs grew louder. "Mama, you won't believe me. No one will believe me." "Tell me." It was Pastor Gabriel. He said it was God's will. He said I was chosen to carry a holy child. He said if I told anyone, God would curse our family. Esther felt rage build in her chest like a fire.
That monster! I'll kill him myself! No, Mama.
Adamma grabbed her mother's arm.
You can't. The whole village worships him. They'll say I'm lying. They'll say I'm trying to destroy a holy man because I'm ashamed of my sin.
But Esther was already marching toward the door.
We'll tell everyone. We'll expose him. Mama, please.
Adamma's voice cracked.
Look what happened to the other girls. Everyone calls them boggy, sluts, liars. No one believes them when they try to hint at the truth.
Esther stopped, her hand on the door handle. Her daughter was right. The village had already decided the pregnant girls were promiscuous troublemakers. Who would believe that their beloved pastor was actually a predator? The next morning, Esther tried anyway. She went to Elder Okoro, the village's most respected leader. "Elder," she said carefully, "I need to tell you something about Pastor Gabriel." Elder Okoro's face immediately hardened. "If you're here to spread lies about that holy man, you can leave now." "My daughter is pregnant," she says. "She says what? That the pastor is responsible?" Elder Okoro laughed bitterly. "Just like all the other boggy girls are claiming now. They sleep around like loose women, then try to blame our spiritual father." "But Elder, what if nothing?" Elder Okoro's voice rose. "These girls are trying to destroy Pastor Gabriel because they're ashamed of their sins. I won't hear another word against him." Esther tried the Women's Council next. Mama Ngozi, Mama Kemi, all the respected mothers of the village. Their reaction was even worse.
"Esther, I'm disappointed in you,"
Mama Ngozi said, shaking her head. "Your daughter has brought shame on your family. And instead of disciplining her, you're trying to blame an innocent man of God." "These young girls today have no respect," Mama Kemi added. "They think they can do whatever they want, then cry victim when they face consequences." "But why would multiple girls all claim the same thing?" Esther asked desperately. "Because they're covering for each other," Mama Ngozi snapped. "They probably have a whole group of boys they're sleeping with. Now they're trying to shift blame to Pastor Gabriel because they know people will believe them about anyone except him." Defeated, Esther returned home to find Adamma curled up in bed, staring at the wall. "No one believes me, do they?" Adamma whispered. "I believe you," Esther said firmly. "That's what matters." "But it's not enough, is it?" Adamma's voice was hollow. "He's going to keep doing this, to other girls, and everyone will keep calling us liars." "What can we do?" Esther asked helplessly. Adamma was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat up, and Esther saw something new in her daughter's eyes, something cold and determined. "We can't prove it with words," Adamma said slowly. "But maybe we can prove it another way." On Sunday morning, a large crowd had gathered under the ancient Iroko tree. Pastor Gabriel stood tall in his gleaming white robe, arms outstretched, voice smooth as honey. "My beloved children," he cried, "these are dangerous times. Lies are spreading like wildfire. But I tell you, I love all the little angels in this village, especially our precious young girls." The crowd murmured in agreement. "God sent me here to protect them," he declared. "And I will. From now on, I will personally guide and counsel every girl, especially those who are with child." He raised a hand solemnly. "I will investigate. I will find out why so many are falling into temptation, and I will pray for them. Myself." The villagers nodded, trusting him more than ever. Adamma watched from a distance, her fists clenched. The next few weeks passed in tense silence. Adamma stopped trying to tell people about Pastor Gabriel. She attended his services with a blank expression, spoke to no one, and spent her evenings sharpening her father's old hunting knife. "What are you doing?" Esther asked one night, watching her daughter test the blade's edge. "Making sure it's ready," Adamma replied calmly. "Ready for what?" "For justice." Esther felt a chill.
Adamma, what are you planning? He destroyed my life, Mama. He destroyed those other girls' lives, and everyone protects him because they think he's holy. Adamma's voice was steady, but her eyes blazed with fury. If words won't expose him, maybe blood will. The opportunity came during the Harvest Festival. Pastor Gabriel was holding a special blessing ceremony for young women, promising to pray for their purity and future marriages. The irony wasn't lost on Adamma. I want to receive this blessing, she told the pastor, her voice soft and submissive. I want to be pure again. Pastor Gabriel's eyes glittered with interest. Of course, my child. Come to my tent after the ceremony. We'll have a private prayer session. Adamma nodded meekly, her hand hidden in her dress, gripping the knife handle. That night, as the village celebrated, Adamma made her way to Pastor Gabriel's tent. Her heart was pounding, but her resolve was iron strong. You came, Pastor Gabriel said with a smile that made her skin crawl. I was hoping you would. You've been so distant lately. I've been thinking about what you said, Adamma replied. About being chosen. About God's will. Good. Pastor Gabriel moved closer, his hands reaching for her. You're learning to accept your destiny. You're going to birth a prophet, Adamma, just like the other girls. The other girls you dishonored? Adamma said quietly. Pastor Gabriel's smile faltered. What did you say? I said the other girls you dishonored. The ones everyone calls Bagi, because they're too afraid to name you as their rapist. Pastor Gabriel's mask dropped completely. You little bitch. You think you can threaten me? You think anyone will believe you? Maybe not, Adamma said, pulling out the knife. But they'll believe this. What happened next was swift and brutal. Pastor Gabriel lunged for her, and Adamma struck with all the rage of months of silence, shame, and helplessness. Her blade found its target with surgical precision. Pastor Gabriel's scream echoed across the entire village. Help! Help me! He shrieked, clutching himself as blood poured between his fingers. The girl has gone mad! She's cut me! She's cut my... The entire village came running. They found Pastor Gabriel writhing on the ground, his white robes soaked with blood, and Adamma standing over him with the knife still in her hand. She's crazy! Someone shouted. She's attacked the holy man! But then something unexpected happened. As the crowd gathered around the bleeding pastor, 17-year-old Kioma stepped forward. She's not crazy, Kioma said, her voice carrying across the crowd. She's brave. What? Elder Okoro stared at her in shock. What are you saying? I'm saying she cut the right part, Kioma continued, her hand moving to her swollen belly. The part he used to dishonor me. The part he used to dishonor all of us. A shocked silence fell over the crowd. Then 16-year-old Amara stepped forward. Me too, she whispered. He dishonored me too. And me, said 15-year-old Nkechi. And me, said 14-year-old Obioma. One by one, 7 girls stepped forward. 7 pregnant girls who had been called Baghi, sluts, liars. 7 girls who had been carrying this secret alone. You're all lying, Elder Okoro shouted, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. You're protecting this criminal. Look at him, Kioma said, pointing to Pastor Gabriel, who was still writhing and screaming. Look at how he's acting. Does this look like a holy man to you? The crowd looked. They saw a man consumed with rage, cursing and threatening, nothing like the composed spiritual leader they thought they knew. You bitches! Pastor Gabriel snarled through his pain. You ungrateful whores, after everything I've done for you, after all the blessings I've given you. Blessings? Adamma laughed bitterly. You call dishonored a blessing? You call destroying our lives a blessing? He told each of us we were special, Kioma continued, her voice growing stronger. He told us we were chosen. He told us that fighting him would bring curses on our families. He said if we told anyone, God would punish us, Amara added.
He said no one would believe us anyway, Nkechi whispered. And he was right, Adamma said, looking directly at Elder Okoro. When we tried to tell the truth, you called us liars. You called us boggy. You protected him and blamed us. The crowd was silent now, the weight of realization settling over them like a heavy blanket.
This is impossible,
Mama Ngozi said weakly.
He's a man of God. He wouldn't.
He's a predator, Esther said, stepping forward to stand beside her daughter. And we were all too desperate for miracles to see it. Elder Okoro looked at the 7 pregnant girls, then at Pastor Gabriel, who was still bleeding and cursing. But the miracles, the healings, the prophecies, all fake, Adamma said. I saw him pay people to pretend to be healed. I saw him research our families to make his prophecies seem real. I saw him count the money you gave him while he planned which girl to destroy next. You have no proof, Pastor Gabriel gasped. I have this, Adamma said, pulling out a small recording device. I recorded everything he said to me tonight, and everything he said to me 3 months ago when he dishonored me. She pressed play. Pastor Gabriel's voice filled the night air. You're going to birth a prophet, Adamma. Just like the other girls. You think you can threaten me? You think anyone will believe you? The confession hung in the air like a curse. The crowd stared at their fallen idol, seeing him clearly for the first time. 7 girls, Papa Chaiki said slowly, his voice breaking. 7 children, 7 families destroyed, and we called them Bagi. We protected him, Mama Ngozi whispered, tears streaming down her face. We protected the monster and blamed the victims. We failed them, Elder Okoro said, his voice heavy with shame. We failed our own daughters. As the sun rose over Umueze, Pastor Gabriel was taken to the nearest hospital under guard. The village doctor said he would survive, but he would never again be able to harm another woman. You did what needed to be done, Kioma told Adamma as they sat together under the Iroko tree. You stopped him when no one else would. I almost killed him, Adamma admitted. Maybe you should have, Amara said quietly, after what he did to us, what he would have kept doing to other girls. But Adamma shook her head. Death would have been too easy. Now he has to live knowing that his victims fought back, that we won. The village began the long process of healing. They apologized to the 7 girls, not just for not believing them, but for actively protecting their rapist. They formed a new council with the girls as members, ensuring that victims' voices would always be heard. We learned something important, Elder Okoro said during their first meeting. We learned that our desire for miracles made us blind to evil. We learned that we must always listen to our children, especially when they tell us difficult truths. And we learned, Mama Ngozi added, that sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is cut the devil's power at its source. Months later, as Adamma held her baby daughter, she whispered a promise. I will teach you to be strong. I will teach you to fight back. I will teach you that no one, not even someone who claims to speak for God, has the right to hurt you. The other girls, now mothers themselves, made similar promises. They had learned that sometimes justice doesn't come from authorities or communities. Sometimes it comes from the sharp edge of a victim's blade. Pastor Gabriel's tent was burned to the ground. His false miracles were forgotten. His name became a curse word in their village. But the story of 7 girls who refused to stay silent and 1 girl who refused to let evil go unpunished became legend. My sweet besties. Sometimes we follow people blindly because they wear holy robes, because they speak with sweet voices. But we must open our eyes, and more importantly, we must trust our children. When they speak, Listen, even if it's hard, even if it breaks your heart. What did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. And if this touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to wake up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. More real African stories are coming.